When I was young, I frequented an arcade with my younger brother, who was about 8 years old at the time. I was around 12 years old. The arcade was located approximately 15 minutes from our home and featured classic games such as Pac-Man, Frogger, and Mortal Kombat, among others. While my brother favored the fighting games, I preferred a racing game. One day after school, we headed to the arcade, which was relatively crowded. The dimly lit interior was illuminated by the bright colors emanating from the games. While engrossed in my game, I noticed a man approaching my brother, seemingly intent on conversing with him. I walked over to my brother to retrieve additional game coins from him, and the man backed off and walked away. Later, I observed the man in close proximity to my games. He wasn't playing any games and didn't appear to be there with anyone. Rather, he was merely surveying the area. I became curious about the man who approached my brother earlier, so I kept a close watch on him. We spent another hour at the arcade before deciding to head home. Once we left, I noticed that the man also left and was following us from a distance of around 100 feet. Our house was about 10 blocks away from the arcade. We walked down the sidewalk and crossed a couple of streets, and the man was still following us. I told my brother to walk faster, and explained to him about the man who approached him earlier. We picked up our pace, and the man also seemed to quicken his pace. We kept looking back and noticed that he was always looking elsewhere, trying to be inconspicuous. It was unsettling to see the man following us no matter where we turned. We continued walking briskly until we saw our house in the distance, then my brother and I sprinted to our front door. Upon unlocking the front door, my brother and I swiftly entered the house, feeling much safer within its walls. However, upon noticing our parents' cars absent from the driveway, we peered outside the window, scanning for any sign of the man who had been tailing us. Not spotting him, we settled in front of the TV to watch a program. Shortly thereafter, we heard footsteps approaching the door and the doorknob turning. Assuming it was our parents, I approached the door, but upon realizing they weren't home, I panicked and ran back to the living room to alert my brother. Suddenly, we heard a knock at the window and turned to see the same man from the arcade, waving at us with a creepy smile on his face. We fled to my bedroom and cowered under my bed, while the man continued to knock on windows throughout the house. Terrified, we waited for what felt like an eternity until we heard my father return home and call out. My brother and I scrambled out from under the bed and told him everything. He phoned the police, and we recounted the events to the officers. We never saw the man again, and it remains unclear whether he was ever apprehended.